Welcome to the Couch Scouts Podcast. We provide league-winning analysis, advice, and tools to help you dominate your league and build a dynasty. Scout, draft, win. Here's your host, Matt Cooper.
Welcome to the Couch Scouts Podcast, episode 49. With me is co-host Matt Rupert. How you doing?
How you doing, man? Surviving the storm.
Yeah, glad that you guys are doing all right. And we are missing Matt Jackson tonight. For those that don't know, he lives in Western North Carolina, and that area has been devastated by the hurricane. And thankfully, he and his family are all right. They're doing well. He's doing some things tonight to kind of just help take care of his family and his home and get things back in order. They're displaced. He's actually at his parents' house right now, I think. So speaking of all that, before we get into the show tonight, I want to say that we here at the Couch Scouts have been affected pretty heavily by Hurricane Helene. And I know my in-laws are up in the mountains. They're, kind of no roads in or out, and still no power, and just got cell service back today to get in communication with us, which was a big relief. And limited supplies. So it's that part of the country. I mean, you can Google it. It has been absolutely devastated. Doesn't even do it justice. Some of the pictures and videos, like there's whole towns that just don't exist anymore. So it's really sad, and a lot of people have lost everything. Rupert, I know you have a grandfather that's 99 years old that is kind of trapped up in the mountains right now, and no power for him either. So yeah, prayers up for everybody that's been affected. But in light of that area, and we are looking to help in any way that we can. So y'all have been hearing us promote our new website, CouchScouts.com. And we have a big announcement, and that is that for the entire month of October, we are going to donate 100% of our proceeds from the website. That is, if you join on a membership subscription pricing plan, if you buy merch, anything, any profit that we make off of the website, we're going to donate 100% of it to the Red Cross America to help with relief in Eastern Tennessee and Western North Carolina from the hurricane. So there's all kinds of great stuff on the website. Maybe some of you guys have thought, yeah, some of those tools will be really useful during rookie season, but I don't need it right now. And you're planning on buying at some point. Would love for you to consider buying it in October. Buy the annual so that you have it when rookie season rolls around. And if you buy it during the month of October, like I said, 100% of our profits this month are going to go to the Red Cross. So we're a small community, small website, but we want to do what we can, do our part to chip in and help a lot of people that are really hurting right now. So, maybe you were debating about getting a shirt or not getting a shirt or a hat or whatever. Take this as a great excuse. We're not going to keep any of the money from that. You get you something nice. It'll be just like you made 100% donation to the Red Cross. So please consider doing that with us.
Yeah, I'm very happy that we can do this, whatever we can do to help support. I know we're all contributing in our own ways. And I just love that we're able to, as a small business, be able to do our part and help out.
For sure. So with all that being said, let's get into the show. So tonight on this episode of the Couch Scouts Podcast, we are going to be playing a little game of Keep, Trade, Cut. And so, if you're familiar with the free website that's out there that gives questionable trade calculations,
to say the least,
you'll go on there and they're a crowdsourced website. And so when you get on the website, they will give you 3 random players and they'll ask you to keep one, trade one, and cut one. And that's how they kind of crowdsource their values and come up with their rankings, and those rankings feed into their calculator and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to be kind of doing that tonight. It won't be 3 random players, but we've pre-selected 3 players that we think will make for an interesting discussion. And each of us will have to choose. Which one would we keep? Which one would we trade? Which one would we cut? So we've got 4 rounds of keep, trade, cut that we're going to be doing tonight on the main show. And then on the bonus podcast for our subscribers, we're going to be talking about players that you need to sell before it is too late. So if you're one of our site members, that should be up later tonight, and hopefully you guys enjoy that show as well. Let's jump right into it. Our very first keep, trade, cut for tonight goes to the wide receiver position. And the 3 wide receivers here are Drake London, who is currently wide receiver 21 on the season. Wan'Dale Robinson, who is currently wide receiver 22 on the season. And Zay Flowers, who is currently wide receiver 42 on the season. Rupert, which one would you keep? Which one would you trade? Which one would you cut, and why?
This was the hardest one for me because I kind of wanted to get a little spicy and trade away Drake London just because I think he has the highest perceived value for sure. I feel like he's valued higher than what I kind of view his ceiling now after a couple years in the NFL. But after too much debate, I ended up deciding I would keep Drake London just because he is the number 1 on the team. It does seem like he's starting to develop a little bit of a rapport with Kirk Cousins. His target shares have gone up as the season's gone on, and Kirk Cousins doesn't look like he did in week 1. So there's a little less concern there with the offense. And I ended up also going with trading Zay Flowers. People that have watched the show know that we're huge Zay Flowers fans, incredible talent. However, it just seems like wide receivers in Baltimore is just not going to work out for high production for fantasy, just due to the fact that they are more of a run-heavy team. They're not really focused on airing it out, and probably never will be. But he still has higher trade value in my mind because he is the number 1 on the team. And then, unfortunately, cutting Wan'Dale Robinson, who is really coming on and coming into his own as the wide receiver 2 for the Giants, just being a target hog. But just due to the fact that he is going to be a number 2, he's never going to overtake Malik Neighbors as a number 1 on that team. So barring injury, he's just always going to be a wide receiver 2.
Yeah, so you said that this was the hardest one for you. I feel like it was the easiest one for me. So Drake London, yes, he had a slow week 1 where Kirk Cousins looked weirdly awful. He only had 3 targets, 2 catches, 15 yards. But since then, Drake London is playing nearly 100% of the snaps. He hasn't been lower than a 97% snap share in any game. The last 3 weeks, his targets have gone 7, and then 9, and then 12. So he is absolutely the alpha. He's getting peppered with targets. During that time frame, he has racked up at least 6 catches in every week. He scored 2 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. And he's putting up the kind of fantasy numbers that I think everybody hoped that they would see from him this year. And I feel like that's going to continue to be the norm moving forward. I think Kirk Cousins has kind of found his rhythm. He's by far the best quarterback that London has played with. We were worried that kind of after week 1, is this the beginning of the end for Kirk Cousins? It doesn't seem like it now. It seems like Kirk Cousins has kind of found his footing a little bit and can definitely sustain Drake London as a fantasy wide receiver. So I think he's going to finish as a high-end wide receiver 2 or low-end wide receiver 1 by the time the season is done. And I'm excited for Drake London and just to finally see that breakout. It seems like it's happening. So he's easily, I would easily take him over either of these other 2 guys. No consideration to do anything but keep Drake London. And then the other 2 guys, I mean, look, from a talent standpoint, Zay Flowers is a lot more talented than Wan'Dale Robinson. We're playing the long game in Dynasty. I know that so far through 4 weeks of the season, Wan'Dale has outproduced him. Yes, he's getting peppered with targets. I think the production that we're seeing from Robinson right now is more real than not. I think, being kind of a low end wide receiver 2 on the season is very much within his range of outcomes. But we were talking about it in our Discord earlier today. I think in an ideal world for an NFL team, he'd be their number 3 guy. And there's a good chance that they just bring in somebody else next offseason. Whereas Zay Flowers, they spent a first round pick on him. I think he's clearly the guy that they want to be their number 1 wide receiver. So more job security, more talent. I know like it's been a slow start. I'm not going to overreact to that. Zay Flowers for me, very clearly above Wan'Dale Robinson in Dynasty. So yeah, this was an easy keep trade cut for me.
Good deal. I'm interested to get into the next one with the running backs here.
Yeah, for sure. So going to the running back position, this one actually probably was the hardest for me. So Jahmyr Gibbs, RB8 so far in the season. Bijan Robinson, currently RB20 on the season. A little bit disappointing. Or Breece Hall, RB13 currently on the season. So a lot of people's consensus 1, 2, and 3 startup dynasty running backs in the offseason. And I guess this is really the question comes down to which order would you take them in? So we'll start with you, Rupert. Which one are you keeping? Which one are you trading? Which one are you cutting?
This one also, I feel like I'm going against what I would have said a month ago, but just watching how the season has kind of started for the players, they look a little different to me. Gibbs looks just as electric as normal, and it seems like they're using him more, even with splitting with a very talented back in David Montgomery. He's still producing at a very high level. So I'm going to end up keeping Jahmyr Gibbs and then trading Bijan Robinson due to the fact that I feel like he has the highest value because I think he was kind of the consensus RB1 in startups. But he hasn't looked as electric to me this year. I don't know if he's dealing with some injuries or whatnot, but Tyler Algier, even with Arthur Smith gone, he's still outproducing Bijan. I think he's got more red zone rushes. So honestly, like I'm a little concerned with what I've seen from Bijan. He just hasn't looked as explosive so far this year. But Breece, the Jets kind of look like a mess, and there's so much talk with Braylon Allen coming on stronger than we expected. And he also, to me, just hasn't looked quite as explosive this year. Yeah, I really struggle with Bijan and Breece. To me, I felt pretty clear that Gibbs has looked better this season so far.
Yeah, so I'm just going to say, as far as I think you made the statement that Tyler Algier is outproducing Bijan. That's not true. Tyler Algier has breached double-digit fantasy points once this week, barely 10.00. He has a season-high snap share of 38%, which was, again, this week. Prior to that, he was playing about 20% of snaps. He has not eclipsed 10 carries yet in a game. And, he hasn't scored a touchdown yet either. So you mentioned the red zone stuff. He hasn't scored a touchdown. So Bijan Robinson, on the other hand, has been playing 80+% of the snaps. He has gotten carries. This week was kind of an outlier. He had 7 carries this week, but the prior 3 weeks, he had 18, 14, 16, and 4 to 5 targets in 3 out of 4 games. So the workload for me to average over 15 carries and about 5 targets a game is really, really nice. We know that the talent is there. They're using Algier a lot less than they were last year. In fact, between the 3 running backs that we're talking about, Gibbs has David Montgomery, and Breece Hall has Braylon Allen, who's looking pretty legit. I'm much less worried about Tyler Algier. So for me, I'm keeping Bijan Robinson. It was tough between Robinson and Gibbs, but I just think the size to hold up longer term without injuries. Uh, eh, there's just a lot. I'm not going to flip necessarily my evaluation of Bijan as a clearly better prospect. And actually, people think of Gibbs as being the receiving guy. He has no targets the last 2 weeks. No targets, no catches. They do not use him in the receiving game nearly as much as Bijan. And in fact, I think I might take Achane over Gibbs as well. So for me, Bijan and Achane is a more difficult discussion than Bijan and Gibbs from the same draft class. But anyway, to get back to the original question, I would keep Bijan Robinson. I would trade Gibbs and I would cut Breece. And that was a really hard decision for me because I love Breece Hall.
Yeah.
I absolutely love him. I think he deserves to be a bell cow. He has all the skill set of a bell cow. He's got all the talent in the world, but they went and drafted Braylon Allen. And Braylon Allen, at this point, as much as we didn't like his tape as a prospect, he looks much more explosive in the NFL than he has so far, or than he did in college. And honestly, the workload decreased. Like every week, Breece Hall has had less snaps, less touches, less everything, and Braylon Allen's has continued to go up. And at this point, I think if Breece Hall was getting the workload that he was getting week one, I would have him pretty clearly ahead of Gibbs. But as that workload continues to go down, that's concerning for me. As the share moves more from like a 80-20 to like 60-40, that's going to significantly eat into Breece Hall's floor and ceiling on a week-to-week basis. And while Gibbs does have Montgomery to worry about, they've clearly shown that they can coexist and both be RB1s. Yeah, I'm not panicked on Breece Hall. This week was rough. 3.8 fantasy points, only 10 carries, still got 5 targets. But I do think that Braylon Allen is going to eat into things more than what we want. And the Jets just aren't as good of an offense as the Lions to be able to sustain both guys. So I'm keeping Bijan, trading Gibbs, cutting Breece Hall. This was the hardest one for me. So we got our first little disagreement here in the books. But
and just to clarify, on Algier, I should have clarified outproducing like on a yards per carry basis.
Okay, I got you. I was like, I am so confused by that statement that Algier is outproducing Bijan Robinson. So I had to fact check you.
I've been up since 4 a.m.
I had to fact check you like it was a political debate or something. But
like you said, that one was tough because we love all three of those guys. So
we do.
I thought I threw a really tough one in there for us.
You did. So we're going to take a quick break. We got a couple more of these to hit, but just wanted to shout out our Discord. And that's not us trying to promote something that is, making us money or anything. It's completely free. It's a community of over 90 guys that are in there talking every day about Dynasty Fantasy Football, breaking news. What do you think about this trade offer I got? Who should I start? Who should I sit? All that kind of stuff. It's a lot of fun. It's a great place to make friends. We have really enjoyed getting to know our listeners. And so if you're listening on Twitter/X right now, you can find it at the link in our bio. If you're listening on any other platform, it'll be in the show notes on the podcast. But definitely check out our Discord, and we would love to engage with you guys on there. So let's move into the second half of our show. And this next one is a little tight end keep trade cut. So we're going to hit every position. We've hit wide receiver. We've hit running back. We're about to hit tight ends and quarterbacks. So keep trade cut Cole Kmet, who's currently the tight end 4 on the season, Pat Freiermuth, who's currently the tight end 5, or Jake Ferguson, who is clearly currently the tight end 10 on the season. Rupert, we'll start with you.
I won't go with keep Pat Fryermuth. I've been a big fan of him. I thought he looked really good before he got injured last year. So it may be a little bit of bias me, like thinking that he was going to break out before the injury. But I feel like he's kind of picked up where he left off. He's looking really good this year to me. I feel like he has the highest ceiling. I think he's very athletic for a pretty large tight end. And he looks a little different to me. Like getting in and out of his breaks, he looks very fluid. So in my mind, he has the highest ceiling. It seems like him and Fields have started to establish a connection there. So I'm going against probably what I would have said 3 or 4 weeks ago. But I only end up keeping Fryermuth and then trading Jake Ferguson. He's not the number one on the team, but he's consistently getting targets in a really devastating tight end landscape. So he's tied with a good offense, good quarterback, and I think that carries value. And then I'm going to cut Cole Kmet. He's clearly the third or fourth option on the team, and he's kind of his numbers are skewed based on one massive week, and I just don't see that happening much. He's probably going to get those massive weeks when he's on your bench. So that's going to be a guy that I'd end up cutting in this scenario.
Yeah, so we're mostly in agreement here, but I am going to disagree slightly and say I would keep Jake Ferguson. I would trade Pat Fryermuth, and I would cut Kmet. So everything you just said about Cole Kmet, I completely agree with you. I think he had one outlier week with that 11-target game, and Keenan Allen was out in that game. And I don't think that's going to happen hardly ever. I'm sure that's his high water mark for the season. He has not clear. I mean, in the other 3 games, he has not cleared 7 fantasy points. He has not cleared 5 targets. So that was more than double his next best game. He's not cleared 34 receiving yards, and that's the only game that he has a touchdown in. So I really think that was an outlier performance. And because we're so early in the season and because tight end has been so ugly, that boosts him all the way up to where it's like, oh man, he's tight end 4. I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. So I agree with everything that you said about Cole Kmet. And the other ones for me is close. I will say that Pat Fryermuth is playing a higher percentage of snaps. And I do agree he's probably the more talented player. He's a clear top 2 target on his team. Like he checks a lot of boxes, the athleticism for what you want in a fantasy tight end. He's getting a higher percentage of his team's targets than Jake Ferguson. The difference to me is just the offenses that they play in. And I know it's a dynasty and situations can change and we got to think long term. But even out of the 4 weeks so far, there's only been 1 week that you would have actually been happy that you started Pat Fryermuth in your lineup. And Jake Ferguson, he's tight end 10 on the season, but on a per game basis, he's better than either of these other guys because he missed a game. He was hurt in week 2. So 11 targets the last week and then 7 this week. And 5 in that first one, which he left early because of injury. So he was on pace for, probably 7+ targets in that one as well. And yeah, Dak loves throwing to the tight end. It's a high-powered offense. I think he's probably one of only 2 or 3 tight ends, period, right now that I actually trust putting in my lineup plug and play every week, and he's going to get me a solid floor with a good ceiling. And so, I'm gonna keep Jake Ferguson just because I feel better about playing him on my fantasy team right now. I'm gonna trade Pat Fryermuth and I'm gonna cut Cole Kmet. So let's move on. We got one more. We're gonna hit the quarterback position here, and this is an interesting one. So, who are you keeping? Who are you trading? Who are you cutting between? Excuse me, Sam Darnold, currently QB5 on the season, Justin Fields, currently QB6 on the season, and Deshaun Watson, currently QB18 on the season. Go ahead, Rupert.
I'll get the easy one out of the way and just say I'm cutting Deshaun Watson. every game I watch, he just looks like a complete shell of himself. And it's been 4 years since he's like really produced and looked like a franchise quarterback. I just don't know if that's ever going to come back at this point. So I'm cutting Deshaun, even though he has that massive contract and seemingly job security. But the next two are harder for sure. I loved Fields for so long and then kind of got burnt last year. So that may be skewing my judgment a little bit because he does look a heck of a lot better with Pittsburgh. He's not making as many move the ball backward kind of decisions where he's taking an unnecessary sack as much, or he's just completely missing open guys and trying to take off and run when he should have hit the guy on his first read. But in this scenario, I'm going to be a little gutsy and go with keeping Darnold. He just looks like a different quarterback, and if he's not tied to such a good offensive-minded coach in Kevin O'Connell and those weapons, yeah, he probably doesn't look as good as he's looked this year, but he just looks in complete control of that offense. He knows his reads. He's not making boneheaded throws. He's throwing guys open. There's been like multiple examples pretty much every game where a guy is kind of covered, but he just throws them open. The Justin Jefferson touchdown this past week, you would argue that he shouldn't have thrown that ball, but he fit it right in. He really has the support of the team, so I feel like he can really resurrect his career and continue to gain value.
Nice. We got a comment. I missed it earlier. It came from Ty. Said, "Send me a trade." So I don't know. I don't know if that was directed at one of our takes earlier that he thought was silly or what. But thank you for watching, Ty. I'm gonna say I'm gonna keep Justin Fields. And I'm going to trade Sam Darnold, and I'm also cutting Deshaun Watson. Like you said, just eye test. Every time I watch Deshaun play, he looks like he just doesn't have it anymore. I feel like it's only a matter of time. Even though that contract is horrendous and they feel kind of stuck in it, it just feels like at some point they're going to have to pull the plug. Even Amari Cooper is like lost all interest in even trying to give any effort playing for that team. The other two was the harder decision. And this is, for me, I like what I've seen out of Darnold a lot. And there is a little bit of PTSD as a Panthers fan of like, when are we going to see the old Darnold come out and throw 4 picks in a game or whatever? But actually what it came down to for me is Sam Darnold is thriving with Kevin O'Connell and with this loaded group of weapons on that offense, but they just spent a high first-round pick on J.J. McCarthy. Sam Darnold is not the future for the Minnesota Vikings, and he doesn't have a contract past this year either. So my guess would be either they bring him back on a cheap 1-year deal in case McCarthy is like still not ready coming back from his injury, but with the intention that when he does, Sam Darnold's the backup, or, maybe this is kind of his audition and he shows enough that another team wants to pay him a bunch of money and he goes to another team. But I don't see him having this level of success if that happens and he goes to another team without O'Connell and without Jefferson and all these guys. So whereas Fields, yeah, there's risk. Like, there's risk with all these guys. I don't think any of them has job security past this year. One, the rushing upside is so insane that anytime he's starting, you can feel good about plugging him into your lineup. 2, I think he has a real shot at retaining the Steelers' job long-term, which I don't feel is true for Darnold with the Vikings. And so that's kind of what separated him for me, was the rushing upside and the fact that he could keep that job beyond just this year. So I'm keeping Fields, trading Darnold, cutting Deshaun Watson.
I can get behind that. That's why I struggle with the job security long term. Because like you said, Darnold could sign a 1-year deal with some team that pays them the most money in the off season, but it's not really the best situation. So we don't really know where he's going to end up. Like you said, I could see Fields starting for Pittsburgh next year.
For sure. So that is the end of our show tonight. Again, if you're a member on the website, we're going to head over to record the bonus show for site members here in just a second. And if you're not, again, 100% of all of our proceeds for the month of October are going to the American Red Cross to help aid in Western North Carolina. So we're not keeping any profit. We would love for you to come check out the site. We hope you love it. Stick around with us for a long, long time. There's all kinds of great resources on there. We've got an all 22 film room with Devi players, with IDP players. We've got our 2025 rookie guide will be included in the website subscriptions. We got the bonus podcast. You can set up a little 30-minute one-on-one consultation with us where we'll give you advice on a dynasty roster of your choosing. So a lot of different perks. We try to pack that thing in with value, and we're always looking to add stuff too. So we're not done. Just because this is what's listed on the site now doesn't mean that we're not going to keep adding more and more things to these packages. But anyway, like I said, we're not keeping any money from it. So month of October, we really want to help out in Western North Carolina. We would love it if you guys would consider joining us for a really good cause. That's going to include our merch and everything too. So thank you guys for listening. You can find me on Twitter/X at CouchScoutsFF. You can find Mr. Rupert at Matthew Rupert FF. And you can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all kinds of different platforms. So check those things out. Check out our Discord. Leave us a review, a like, comment.